Hi, welcome to Week 7, Part 2 on Neoclassical Art. This section continues our discussion of the 18th century. The events of the French Revolution can be summed up as a response against the monarchy and upper class and the elitism of French culture in general. Similarly, Neoclassicism and Romanticism, which is the subject of the next lecture, are responses to Rococo. Neoclassicism. Concurrent with, but slightly later than Rococo, is Neoclassicism. In art history, this term can be used in this generic way, uncapitalized neoclassicism, to describe any style that claims to take a modern spin on the classical world of ancient Greece and Rome. But when capitalized, neoclassicism refers to the academic style of the 18th century. Neoclassicism became an essential tool of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. 18th century neoclassicism, like all such neoclassicisms, starts from the idea that the art of ancient Greece and Rome was the epitome of Western art. From there, neoclassicism attempts to appropriate aspects of Greco-Roman art to convey modern messages. By painting in a style that looks timeless and perfect to modern viewers, neoclassical artists can use this style to promote Enlightenment ideas as if they too are timeless, perfect, essential, and therefore somehow natural and inarguable. Neoclassicism is also a perfect academic style. It directly references the ancient past that's revered by the Academy. It also is characteristically prescriptive, and the prescription is rather clear and easy to follow. Neoclassicism provided a way to teach artists how to draw and paint, quote unquote, correctly, from perfect antique models, not from the imperfect natural world. Neoclassical art is austere. None really of the billowing shapes and curving lines of Rococo, or in the works of Angelica Kauffman or in those of Jacques-Louis David. With its austere, clean lines, neoclassicism provided the appearance of perfect impartiality. For this reason, along with naturalist Rococo, neoclassicism became the established format for the rational Enlightenment concepts of the good mother and equality of the races. Later, the Romanticism of the late 18th and 19th centuries gave way to more emotionally charged and less rational compositions. That's covered in the next week's lecture. The grand manner. This classical revival ensured a similarly serious tone was taken in portraits of the so-called grand manner. London Royal Academy President Joshua Reynolds' Lady Sarah Bunbury sacrificing to the Graces is typical of the grand manner painting of the neoclassical period. Reynolds maintained that academic artists should paint in a grand manner, in which relatively ordinary subjects are idealized and made perfect through the inclusion of elements and aesthetics of ancient art. Reynolds' Lady Sarah Bunbury is shown performing an ancient Greek rite with a classical temple setting. By portraying his subject in this timeless manner, he presents her as perfect and important. Compare the grand manner style to the naturalist Rococo portraits of the last lecture. Naturalist and neoclassical portraits both attempt to idealize their subject, but in very different ways. Similarly, American artist Benjamin West's Death of General Wolfe idealizes its subject, who lies in the center of the composition. The fallen hero is immortalized in a fantastic imaginary scene. The presence of the Native American reveals the imaginative nature of the painting, since Native Americans fought on the side of the French, not the British. Perhaps he is there to lend some naturalist credibility to Wolfe, as during the Enlightenment, Native Americans were idealized as noble savages, uncorrupted by civilization. The works of John Singleton Copley demonstrates the popularity of neoclassical style in the soon-to-be United States. Copley became famous for his portraits of famous American revolutionary figures such as Paul Revere and Samuel Adams. As is typical for neoclassical paintings, both subjects are painted in a clean, crisp manner. Copley's innovation was to occasionally add personally identifying accessories, like the silver teapot, which probably represented Revere's skill as a silversmith. Though Copley is famous for his paintings of American revolutionaries, he himself was ambivalent about the revolution. Copley's father-in-law actually owned the tea company associated with the Boston Tea Party. Despite his connections, Copley was suspected by some to be a British loyalist. In 1774, he fled to England and never returned to America. Other neoclassical artists took their subject matter directly from ancient Greco-Roman mythology and history. Anton Meng, a German artist, painted an archetypical neoclassical fresco for the ceiling of a villa belonging to a wealthy family in Rome, Italy. The subject is Parnassus, the home of Apollo and the Muses. Meng's style is clear, crisp, and colorful. It was certainly painted with knowledge of the Renaissance artist Raphael's Parnassus at the Vatican in Rome. Many critics say this is a rather stiff painting, with little of the liveliness or movement of Raphael's work. Yet this artist has internalized the prevailing neoclassical style and interpreted Raphael's piece accordingly. Some neoclassical artists exploited the somewhat severe academic style for political purposes. Angelica Kauffman and Jacques-Louis David were both artists who used this style in order to promote Enlightenment ideas. Kauffman's Cornelia and Her Children is held up today as a classic example of neoclassical style and Enlightenment subject matter. Cornelia was an historical person, a wife of the Roman Emperor Tiberius. In this image of a fable about Cornelia's life, Kauffman is able to justify utilizing ancient-looking clothing as well as architecture. Cornelia, the woman on the left, is shown reacting to an acquaintance's request to see her jewels by graciously gesturing to her children. In demonstrating her preference for her children over material wealth, Cornelia presents a model for the Enlightenment good mother. She also presents an ideal citizen within a democratic society. The idealization of ancient Rome as a model of a democratic republic became more and more common in art as we approached the end of the 18th century and the French revolutions. Jacques-Louis David's most important pre-revolutionary work, The Oath of the Horatii, also presents us with a model of good citizenship and democratic self-governance. In another pseudo-historical mythological scene of ancient Rome, Horus and his sons prepare for a 3-on-3 battle with the Horatii of Alba. This episode was apparently invented by the artist. It extols the virtues of the Horatii, sons of Horus, who are willing to give up their own lives for their country, taking personal responsibility for their citizenship so that the lives of innocent civilians wouldn't be lost in war. Like Kauffman's Cornelia, David's Oath utilizes not only classical subject matter, but also clothing and architecture. Oath has been described as resembling a Greco-Roman relief sculpture due to the profile view of the figures, their austere and stiff poses, and the highly stylized and architectural background. While this painting can easily be read as sympathetic to the democratic government and revolution, it was actually a royal commission and therefore not directly subversive until it was later appropriated as a symbol of the revolution. We'll hear much more about Jacques-Louis David's work during and after the French Revolution when we learn about Romanticism in the next lecture. Several of David's pupils became very famous in their own right as neoclassical and Romantic artists. Anne-Louis Girardet-Truesson painted a portrait of Haitian revolutionary figure Jean-Baptiste Bely in a typically Enlightenment and neoclassical fashion. Bely is shown with an array of iconographic symbols of his status. He leans against a classical-style bust of an abolitionist philosopher. Bely's clothing indicates his status as an assemblyman. The background reminds us of his tropical homeland. Applying the neoclassical style to a person of African descent was highly forward-thinking even for the Enlightenment, when non-whites were most often seen in art as essentialized representations of the quote-unquote noble savage. Girardet no doubt created this work as an homage to his personal hero, and this was not a commissioned work. Jean-Antoine Houdon was a French sculptor in the neoclassical style. His portrait of a different revolutionary figure, George Washington, has become an iconic representation of the first president of the United States. It also reminds us of ancient Greek and Roman sculptures. The artist depicts Washington in military garb, strong and confident, and physically idealized with a powerful build. You can read about the symbolism of the Roman objects in the sculpture on page 940. That wraps up Week 7 on Rococo and Neoclassical art. For next week, we present Art of South and Southeast Asia, the first of 4 units on non-Western art.